Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Marcus, Empyrium, Mourners, live at Strasbourg Opera House 2017. Thank you. You're very welcome, Marcus. We're going to dive into this. We have 9 minutes and 20 seconds of music ahead of us. Empyrium is doom metal, I think. I don't know. Let's dive into it though, see what they're bringing to the table today. Maybe not doom metal. It definitely has a folk element. Like folk metal. We have a synth in the background too. Beautiful violin work though. The subtle dynamics, very well done. So this tempo I'm feeling is 50 BPM. Not the slowest, but certainly on the slower side.
Should it be that we can hear the woes of those who seize their lives?
Actually, I take that back. This is the 50. This is about 100. Yeah, so the violin definitely feels in 50, but the hi-hat movement kind of gives it this faster feeling, which is at 100. And the song likes to bounce back and forth between the slower feel and the double time. It is a heavy track, but for something called Mourners, it's not quite as melancholic as I was expecting.
Lost is the hope of those who walk the moors with pain in heart.
Interesting triple pulse to throw in there from the drums. Okay, massive energy drop. We have the toms in here now. Very different from the other times we've dropped the energy to highlight the violin, focusing on hi-hat in those. That dude really enjoyed that.
Thanks a lot, Strasbourg.
All right. It always gives me a little bit of a smirk when I think, oh, dude, this was almost a 10-minute song, and it was verse, chorus, outro. Like structurally, there's not a lot here. And so, like from a musical analysis perspective, it has about as much music in it as what I would normally talk about in a 2 to 3 minute radio rock track. It's very straightforward and not densely layered or composed. It is designed exclusively for, well, not exclusively, primarily for an atmospheric component where the slower tempo and generally slow pace through the song is an additive component to the emotional element. It is, like a lot of doom metal, very effective in that realm. And I do think that it is its strength as a track to focus on the emotional impact. When you listen to the tempo, especially when you feel that slower 50 BPM that the violin tends to lean into, and you listen to the harmonies, the chord choices, the ways that the melody dances over top these chords, it is heavy, it is lethargic, it is dreary. Again, not quite as melancholic as I was expecting for a song called Mourners. It's possible we get into the lyrics and maybe it's trying to find some beauty through this hardship, but it does have a dreariness to it, something definitely on the sadder spectrum of emotion. And I think the melodies do a great job at elevating this. The chords are moody, sure, but by themselves, I don't really think they do as much as they could. It's the melodies, especially in the final third when it's pure instrumental, where the guitar melody really takes the song and pushes it forward and says, this is dreary, this is sad, this is heavy, this is emotionally resonant. And I'm glad that they took so much time to focus on melody, especially since the vocals, half of what was sung was growled. So at least personally, I don't get a lot out of that emotionally. So having the guitars come in and fill in that emotional element, at least for me, is a massive boon for this track. And I think from start to finish, you can absolutely feel this weight, this cloud that lingers over this track. And yeah, they do that very well. Doom is definitely a good genre for this kind of writing. I do enjoy the drum work on this, actually, despite the fact that the drummer consistently makes a song feel faster than it is. Whether it is the tom work or the bass kicks or the hi-hat work, it consistently feels like it's 100 BPM, twice as fast as the 50 that the melody implies. But I think so much of that is just to help the song from dragging. It also helps to have more attacks per beat, just in order to keep a more consistent rhythm. I've mentioned this before, specifically when we have looked at Funeral Doom and the BPMs have dropped down to like 40, 35. I think 33 is the slowest song we've ever listened to, which is getting very close. I mean, 30 beats per minute is one beat every 2 seconds. And while you're like, 2 seconds, that's not much. If you actually count out 2 seconds, there's like a lot of space there. It is so much room between hits as you get, down to that 30 and below area of BPM. So it's easier to feel the double time where you have more attacks, because otherwise you're trying to gauge time in space and emptiness. And so maybe the 50 was kind of difficult to keep a pulse to. But with the drummer doing 100, that's a lot easier to find a consistent beat to. And I think that is possibly a contributor to why there really wasn't too much temporal flubbing going on in here. Not usually a strong aspect for me, but I know a lot of doom metal listeners really enjoy this. We've listened to plenty of doom tracks that push down into 50, 40, 30 BPMs. And there's just a lot of temporal discrepancy where the beat will be here, but the guitar might come in a little before it, the drums might come in a little after it, the bass somewhere in between, but not necessarily on the beat. And it's just a very rough temporal identity in the track. And I don't think that ever happened on this one. And part of that is because there's this 100 BPM feel that the drummer consistently puts in there. But it also never allows the track to drag either. At no point does this feel like it isn't progressing somewhere. I don't think this is a constant problem in doom metal, because sort of the idea is to feel the weight of the moment. And since that's such a key element of this style of music, being locked in the moment for longer times doesn't really feel like it's working against the track in any way. The experience is consistent with the intentions. But particularly with this track, it didn't feel like 9.5 minutes of music. And this went by pretty quickly, even despite the fact that most of this is all based off of one melodic lick. The vocalists use it, the guitars use it, the bass ends up playing a less complex variation of it at times. The violin plays it. Like, so much of the song is kind of based off of one single idea. And the drummer helps keep things lively and moving forward. And it never really feels like it stagnates too much. Though, of course, it's going to be a subjective element. It's quite possible you listened to this and felt like you were kind of done 3-4 minutes into this. You felt like you had heard everything it had to offer. That's always possible too. But at least for me, the drummer kept things moving forward. Unfortunately for me, that's kind of the end of my praise The drum work, the guitar melody, and the atmosphere are all great, but I didn't emotionally connect with this. We're going to move away from the objective analysis into a subjective one. I understand, I believe, the artistic purpose behind the lower energy vocals, both the growls themselves not really having a lot of impact, but also the vocals themselves just kind of being low energy. Just and there's just not a lot of projection. There's not a lot of, to me, personality in it. For a track that's supposed to feel as heavy and weighty as this, the vocals are not indicating that grief or pain. They are certainly delivering lethargy. This is a person who has been completely destroyed by their grief and can barely muster the lightest amount of effort to get a melody out. And they can't even put words to it. It is just basically open mouth humming at this point. So like, I get that point, but I don't connect with the pain. I don't connect with the grief. I only connect with the lethargy, which kind of seems like a secondary component. They are lethargic. They are lacking energy because of their grief, because of their pain. That's the umbrella emotion there. The lethargy is a subcomponent of that. And yet that's the only emotion I connect with here. And it ends up being kind of emotionally vapid for me. Like musically, I feel that it is dreary, it is heavy, it's moody, but I don't feel that emotion within me. Some people may listen to this and be moved to tears, finding the emotion completely, gushing out of the song, and they're just completely overwhelmed by this. But I don't. And I think if you go back a couple of weeks ago when I shared some of my favorite tracks with y'all, and I bookended it with 2 emo songs, both of which were very heavy and moody, kind of like this, more minimalistic on the writing, usually just a chordal element, a melody, or maybe even not even an instrumental melody, and then the vocal work on top. But the big difference is that the vocalists really felt like they were in pain. They really felt in sorrow. Their voice cracked. It was imperfect. And there was a lot of projection behind it, as if this was something bubbling up and is just gushing out of them now. And I don't want to say that that's the only way that you can portray pain or grief in music. Authentically, even. I think there's a variety of ways, but for me personally, the easiest way I have, and I think the most effective way I have to connect with music, if there's vocals, is to really feel that pain in the vocal performance, and I don't here. And that's, again, it's a subjective thing. I don't want to put that as a negative criticism of something that they could have done better. It would have appealed to me personally if the vocals were more energetic and rawer. But again, that wouldn't make it better. Not across the board, not subjectively, or sorry, not objectively. It would just be something that I think I would have an easier time connecting with. And through that lens, the melody on this is the same throughout. I did find that the last 6 minutes worked well, and I liked how the violin shifted over to the 16th note, really quick back and forth bowing. I thought that added a nice texture underneath everything that kind of created a bit of urgency that worked well with the double bass kick that the drummer was going on, and it kind of gave the end of the song a little bit of a peak. But the continuous reuse of the lick, the riff, the melody that everyone's been singing and playing for 9 minutes, the hyper repetition of that kind of made it fall a bit flat for me. Like a joke that you've heard too many times, you might have laughed the first time, but by the 100th time, you're like, dude, I get it. I would have liked a little bit more variety in the melodic component here, but again, subjective taste. The hyper repetition could be an artistic or thematic purpose here. Sort of like a mantra in musical form. Maybe this person is trying to overcome their grief by remembering this one thing, and it's what helps them get through this moment in their life. So again, there could be really good reason for all of these ideas to be present. But for me, it just kind of created a song that I wish I had liked more. It has some really strong parts to it, and of all the extreme metal genres, doom is the one I tend to connect with the most, that I tend to enjoy the most. And this song, unfortunately, just didn't quite click for me, despite the fact that it had a violin in it, which I'm always down for more violin in doom. I think the violin works great in a lot of metal, but doom, it really suits itself well for. Let me hit some lyrics on this, and then we're going to wrap this one up. All right, we have maybe 8 unique lines on this. The first verse is 4, the second verse is 2, and then there are 2 in the chorus, which is repeated twice. As I mentioned, it's a verse, chorus track here. It talks primarily about people who have experienced a lot of grief in life to the point that it overcomes their living experience. It uses the metaphor of an old tree, as old as the stones, sitting in the forest, having the moon shine on it how many times? An indication that, the revolution of the moon and the sun, days passing, how many days have passed on this tree? We've lost track of time. That's how old the tree is. It says it's so old that they bear the never-ending grief, age-old miserability, ancient bitter beauty. Someone who has just lived too long, older than any of the people that they knew, outlived all of their friends and family, overcome exclusively by grief. It says, lost is the hope of those who walk the moors with pain in heart, and all joy it sinks buried deep, forever presumed dead. Basically saying there is more to life. It sucks to be filled with so much grief, to miss so many people, but you still have life. You still need to live it. And if you don't, you are lost. It says that you may forever be presumed dead if all of your joy sinks. So it's both an understanding and hope for people like this. Like this tree who has seen its surroundings change and grow and decay while it still stands. A bitter, beautiful thing. But you got to push on. And this is a letter to our narrator. Ancient bitter beauty is how the first chorus ends, but the very last line of the track, before we get into the instrumental outro, says, a bitter beauty thrilling me. And I think that's interesting, to see yourself in this tree, to remind yourself that if you succumb to this grief and it is the only thing in your heart, just this pain, that you become lost, to look at this tree and realize you have to keep going. This is why I like diving into lyrics, because musically, I mentioned, it didn't really emotionally connect with me, but I love these lyrics. There's depth to this. I wish they were delivered with something that was, to me, more emotionally impactful. But again, I see the vision to this. Someone so out of energy at the end of their lives, old and miserable, filled with pain and sorrow and grief, barely finding the will to live, and connecting with this tree that has seen it all as well, and reminding themselves to live. I do wish by the end of the track, sometime towards the end of the track, the vocals had a little bit more oomph to them, to at least indicate that this feeling of perseverance is being understood. But again, it's this idea of this mantra. This reminder to the self to continue to live, that it's what everyone else would want. And I think that's what the melody ends up being. I mentioned that it was repetitive, possibly for a reason, and maybe that's it. There is a shred of hope inside of that sorrowful guitar line. Maybe that's what it's indicating. At least those are my thoughts on Empyrium's Mourners. Let me know what you thought of this track, if there's anything that stood out to you, anything that you would like to add on to what I said, or correct me on if you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this. Let me know. Put all of that as well as anything else you'd like to add into the comments section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.